Welcome to the SCAC Reminding Podcast, a series of short episodes with a variety of speakers, covering topics on organization transformation, entrepreneurship, people, and leadership. Welcome back to the final episode with Jim. Jim, what are the services SCAC provides in developing Thai leaders for the future?
In our first 3 episodes, we shared our research and insights about why we need a new type of leader, and then we followed that by sharing the 6 new capabilities that Thai leaders need to demonstrate to help themselves and their businesses thrive. Thai leaders have a challenge coming. There's going to be a new world and a new normal coming out of this COVID-19 situation. And the urgency of Thai leaders to develop these new, agile, collaborative, and entrepreneurial skills is even more critical. However, the additional challenge we face is that these capabilities cannot be created overnight. The old ways of training and development are not sufficient to develop this new kind of leader in the future. It's going to take a completely new way of development and learning to do that. To address this challenge, we're going to focus on 2 specific things in this episode. First, we will share a new framework for how leaders can be effectively developed going forward. Next, we'll take you through one example of SCAC's Leading in the Future paths called the Agile Leader. Now, during our Leading in the Future research, we also experimented with and applied new ways of developing people. We recognized some time ago that the traditional classroom training or even e-learning was not going to be sufficient or fast enough to be able to scale our leaders' skills to keep pace with global competition and disruption. Too often, organizations choose a packaged training program and assign leaders to attend it. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 day leadership program, but it normally doesn't have those before, during, and after support mechanisms to help the leader apply what they need in context. And rarely do we sit down with those leaders and empathize with them about what are the challenges you're facing, what are the skills that you need to become an effective leader in this disruptive era. So the first thing you need to do is build backwards from the role of the leader and focus on what they're trying to accomplish, the skills required, and then develop a learning path and an ecosystem around them to deliver it to them. Once you've identified those skills and the outcomes that you need to have support that leader, as SEA has done in its research with those 6 capabilities, then you need to have a very good process and support structure to deliver that. Now, from our research, SEAC copyrighted and executed a process called 5 Phase 4 Lines. I'll be releasing a new podcast and video series on that in the near future, but here I'll give you a short overview. So let's go through those 5 phases quickly, but let's do it from the perspective of the leader as learner. What questions do we need to answer for them in order for each phase of the learning to be successful? Phase 1 in our 5-phase development process is introduce and enroll. As Simon Sinek says, you start with why. Too often we don't let people know why they're important or why this program is important or what's in it for them. So we want them to believe that this program is about them and it's for them. So communication at the very front end by very important people, letting them know that they're important, is critical. When that's complete, they're saying, okay, I think I want to go to this program. Phase 2 is about baseline and measure. So now that they say, this program, I get it, I know what I'm supposed to learn, so what's expected of me after the program? So being very clear on when you finish the program, you're going to be able to do these things, and then ask the question, where are you now in relation to that expectation? So you want to baseline that by asking them simple survey questions that allow them to see, oh, I really don't know how to do that, or I don't do that often enough, maybe I need to be in this program. Phase 3 is engage and inspire. So that's where people kind of come together, everybody who's going to learn together. And remember, learning together as a community is tremendously more effective than having people learn on their own. So how are we going to support and learn together, where all the stakeholders talk about how we're going to learn together and support each other? Coaches, participants, HR, sponsors, even SEAC. How are we going to make this happen? And then what impact will we have if we really did and change this? So creating a future vision of success that makes people inspired and engaged to say, I really want to do this, and we need to do this together. So phase 4 is actually where what we would call the traditional training would start. Notice that nobody's actually walked into a classroom yet through the first 3 phases. And those first 3 phases can take anywhere from 15 minutes to a couple of weeks, depending on how big the program is and what the scope of learning is. But phase 4 is the build and integrate. And this is how is that concept or content linked to my work? Where and how and with whom can I use this in my work? And who can I practice with? This is more focused on the workshops and the hands-on learning. And the final phase is the consolidate and sustain. After we've gone through a set of learning or a period of build and integrate, stopping and saying, what's the most useful tools and skills I've learned? What's my plan for implementing and sustaining this over the next 30, 60, or 90 days? So those are the core questions, among many others, that are asked and answered in our 5-phase, 4-line solution process. Now let's say that the 5 phases we just talked about represent 5 sections of a bridge spanning a canyon of skill gaps. On this side is your current leaders, and on the other side of the canyon is your future leader. Now the bridge with just a structure doesn't do much. You have to put a road on that bridge. And let's pretend that that bridge has 4 lanes that you can travel, and each one of those lanes is a different way or line of learning. So this could include workshops, e-learning, on-the-job application, coaching, etc. Any one of a dozen interventions to help them build skills along the way and to get across the bridge. So as you cross through each section of the bridge, you can change lanes to ensure the most effective and fast way for someone to learn and get to the other side. To make it even cooler, each of these lanes has a different color and purpose, and this is our 4-line learning. So imagine that the first lane in the highway across the bridge is blue, and it's called the online learning lane. This is the typical bite-sized, self-paced digital learning that provides core content or theory before learning or application. Now, it's really costly to put leaders in a big classroom just to give them background or core information about, for example, what is Agile, or what are the 5 elements of an effective Scrum process. But they can learn that at their own time and their own pace. This digital learning should be carefully curated and focused on the most useful, practical information that fits the leader's context. Let them do that on their own and come into the workshops fully ready on the core concepts and ready to apply it in context. And that leads us to the second lane, which is green and called inline learning. This is what would be called live synchronous learning, whether it's face-to-face in a classroom or virtual live interaction learning through something like Zoom or WebEx. But this isn't normal training. Entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk said recently, if content is king, then context is God. And in developing leaders, effective experiential integration of content with their real world is essential. Leaders and learners have to analyze, practice, and move the concepts and frameworks into their context by identifying specific ways they're going to apply it and make an impact. The third lane in the bridge is yellow, and it's called, appropriately, Beeline. Now, bees bring nectar back to the hive, and they make honey for the queen, but let's say that queen is capability. So when developing leaders, you need to send them out on missions and try new things and get coaching or gain experiences. You need to spread out the learning process. They need to keep going out and coming back in. So the goal is regularly trying new things, whether I've succeeded or failed, and then coming back to the hive and unpacking it with other learners. This could be with a coach or in a discussion board or in a virtual community of practice or many other social learning interventions. But doing this well adds exponential value to their learning, confidence, and application. The final lane on the bridge is red, and it's called, appropriately, Frontline. Now, this is the fastest lane across the skill bridge, as your leaders are on the job, on the front lines, trying something new to make an impact. They are using their new insights, skills, and tools in real time. For example, I'm running a team Scrum meeting, and I'm following a tip card I got in my training session. I'm applying the OKR concept from Intel and Google, defining my objectives and key results for the next 90 days on a real project to sprint towards an aspect of the business that I'm improving. So you're applying real things in real time and then typically changing lanes to the Beeline to reflect, share, and grow together. So now you have the 5-phase bridge structure across the skill chasm, and you've added 4 potential lanes of travel, and this gives you tremendous power and flexibility to build skills faster by changing lanes during or between each one of those phases. So now let's take you on a real learning journey across the bridge using all 5 phases and 4 lines. Now you have the 5-phase bridge structure across the skill chasm, and you have added 4 potential lanes of travel. This gives you tremendous power and flexibility to build skills faster by changing lanes during and between each one of these phases. SEAC's Contextualized Solutions Group has taken these future leadership capabilities and built 5 specific bridge paths across that gap to build your future leaders at all levels of your organization. Here they are. You have the first-time leader, which is your young, inexperienced, or untrained leaders who need to skill up on the fundamentals quickly. You have the engaged middle manager. A middle management role is critical in almost all organizations, and their ability to connect up and down and work across the organization is key. And then we have the 3 leadership areas that we talked about earlier: the operational leader, the agile leader, and the transformational leader. All of these are mapped to the 6 required capabilities. All 5 of these paths integrate our 5-phase 4-line processes with world-class content and technology from over 15 global partners, such as the Stanford Center for Professional Development, Blanchard Companies, Erikson Institute, and the Arbinger Institute. All of these paths use a wide variety of simple yet effective digital, social, experiential, virtual, and action-based learning activities and innovations, and they ensure that your leaders successfully cross the skill gap into the future. Equally important is that they can be scaled and adapted to your context through our Faces and Places framework, as well as to your budget and timeline, so that you're getting what your leaders need in the time and the budget that you have. Future leaders in Thailand need to rapidly acquire these new leadership competencies and place them at the forefront of their activities, along with the traditional and continuing needs for visioning, strategizing, and decision-making. Such action will enable Thai organizations to flourish and not die in the face of these current and future challenges. Please join us on the journey to upscale Thailand and empower lives through living. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast series. I look forward to having further conversations with you about leading in the future. Take care.
Thank you very much, Jim. For a summary of today's episode, after COVID, it's going to be a whole new world. Therefore, there will be a new way of developing leaders. The present-day 2-day workshop is no longer the way. It should be empathizing with the leaders more. Begin with why they need to be developed. Through SCAC's very own 5-phase 4-line solutions and process, and our partnership with global partners. In our next episode, we'll be hearing from Ms. Nipatra Tangpot Tuvipon on the topic, New Ways of Working for the New Economy.